That's an unfortunate day to have a bad hair.
Sure is. Oh well.
That stinks.
All right, are you ready?
We ready for this?
Just trying to fix my
hold on.
cowlick.
I need to open my slow clap app.
All right, let's do it. Hey. Welcome to another edition
of.
Get your
I don't have my app. I can't find it. I don't know where I put it.
Get that app
the slow
open.
clap app. There we go. Shake it.
I got a standing ovation here.
Yeah, you jumped ahead.
Yeah, here we are.
This is our classic slow clap app in the Trending Podcast. If you haven't heard it before.
Yeah, welcome back. Welcome back to the Trending Podcast.
Amazing.
Very good.
Awesome to be here.
Hey, Andy.
So,
hey,
Pastor
Kari.
Andy here. Pastor Brent. And we're here, if you're not watching, if you're listening, we're here with our amazing wives today, are here with us. We've got my wife, I'll introduce her first, Kari Broad is here. And,
hey, Kari.
let's
she's
married to me, so that's one thing. That's cool.
That deserves a clap.
We lost the applause.
There we go.
There we go.
Kari Broad, ladies and gentlemen. Amazing. Kari actually works at the church, too. You want to
Yeah.
tell us?
Yeah,
Something that
I
you
am
do?
the central kids pastor here at King's Church, and so I just oversee the kids ministry happening.
I just oversee.
Just.
I just oversee 400 kids
Like it's no big thing.
every week.
Like it's no big thing. Awesome.
We had 20 babies in one service last week.
Nuts.
So that's,
God bless.
no kidding.
Those nursery workers.
That were in
20
that
babies
nursery.
in one service.
People think other
Yep.
jobs are hard. No. That is the hardest one, I think.
That was closing my app.
I gotta say,
Oh.
you're my favorite podcast guest yet.
Aw,
Look at that.
Ever.
Look at
it's
that.
a good thing to say
Thanks
before
for
we
doing
start.
Well done. Well played, sir. And we've got my wife, Mrs. Melanie Ingersoll.
Miss. Nice.
Nice touch.
This was the one we were trying to
Yes,
find.
it is. You were trying to find country versions better,
No.
Agreed.
right?
No.
Was it Boys to Men? Is that what the version
No,
was?
it's All for One. It's an R&B version.
The country versions.
This has been an ongoing debate, guys, back from another video shoot.
This might get pulled off
Sang this
YouTube because we don't have permission. All
That's
for
true.
One, we did not ask your permission
We're
to
sorry,
play this
guys.
song.
I think at this point in history, they should be thanking us for playing that on this podcast, if anything.
It's the most exposure
If they
they've
try to
had
come
in a
after us,
while.
it's like, come on, we're just helping you out. at
They,
this point.
yes, it's been a while since All for One's made a splash.
Yes.
That was the last of it, I believe.
It's been a bit. It's been a
Name
bit.
one other All for One song.
I can't.
No, me neither.
I didn't even know they did that.
Someone in
one.
the comments is going to name
They will.
The other
help us out, guys. If you know
All for
what's,
One.
Put your favorite All for One song. Comment.
all of you. All of you All for One fans out there.
I know you all
Go
love them so
ahead and
much.
let us know your favorite.
Those of you who even know who they are.
All right, so what are we doing today for Better for Worse edition? This is
Yeah.
our fourth podcast actually. And
It is.
we started
first
this
For Better for
during
Worse
our
podcast.
trending series.
Yep.
And now we are in a season where we're doing a series at the church called For Better for Worse, talking about marriage. And
Marriage.
relationships. So that's what we're going to do today.
Marriage is great, right, guys?
So good.
Yeah.
Good answer. Good answer.
I feel like there was
Yes.
some sarcasm there. I don't know what that was.
It's perfect.
No, so
Always.
anyway, guys, I thought it'd be cool to jump in with a little game. You guys cool playing the game with me real quick? We're gonna call this game's called Him or Her, so you can see you've all got a little apparatus in front of you here.
Did you feel like Kelly Ripa with your
A little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. You
Regis
got it
and
there.
Kelly?
No, it's Ryan Seacrest.
With the mug.
They lost me after when Philbin was
Once
gone.
Philbin was out,
once Philbin was
I was
out,
out.
I was out. So
I legit did watch it sometimes when he was on it, so
Michael
I'm
Strahan
sure I'm gonna
was
watch it
good,
again.
too.
Michael Strahan, Ryan Seacrest,
no
nothing on
replacing
Regis.
Reg.
No,
Nothing
there's
on
no.
Regis.
all right, what
so
do we
here's,
do
here's
here?
how this game works. It's called Him or Her.
Yep.
I'm gonna ask us some questions, and then as couples, we have to decide the answer to the question. It's either gonna be him or her. Who's more likely to do this?
Okay.
Him or her?
So, like, if I think that it's you,
if you think it's me, you would say him. If I think it's me, I would say
Yep.
him.
Do we have to do it? Do we do it at the
So
same
we're-
time? Do we
Yep,
place
we'll all go
our
at the same time, play it
Okay.
face down, and you pick it up and
All right.
display. 1, 2, 3, go. And if you match, you get a point. That's the idea. Is that
Oh, okay.
hopefully you
It's
win.
a
Ooh,
contest.
competition.
We just got
Yes.
interested.
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
good.
We're in.
So the best couple has the highest amount of points. I'll stop the game whenever we're ahead. Right? Okay, cool. Awesome. All right, first question. Who made the first move? Who made the first move in your relationship? Display. Nice. Oh.
You asked for my number.
I was told.
Ask for the digits.
I was told.
You asked for my number.
Information
Okay,
was
cool.
brought to me that said if you called
I didn't do
her,
anything.
she
We're gonna
would
fight
answer.
about it now.
Nice. No,
So-
do it.
He
Fight.
asked for my number.
true
You
or false, I would have never thought that you would have ever given me the time of day, and
That
I had
wasn't
to
the
be
question.
I had to be motivated, and so somebody had to initiate conversation.
Sure.
To get
That
me.
was you.
You greased the gears for him, though, did you?
Yes, she did. 100%.
I didn't. My brother did.
And why would your brother know that?
Because you let him know.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
You made the first move. You asked for my number. End of discussion.
That's the first official move.
We're gonna argue over
You
it.
did the move behind the
And
move.
official moves matter.
Okay,
I don't
all
even
right.
remember what
I
my
did.
first move was.
But we
It was you.
failed.
We both agreed anyway, so that's the point.
1-0
Cool.
Broads.
All right,
Let's
1-0
go.
for the
Let's
Broads.
go.
We should have had a score chart, shouldn't we? Let's see.
Here,
Who
hold
do we-
on. I'll get my scoreboard up that I had in my sermon last
Oh,
week.
yeah, there you go, the
Let me get
flipboard.
that.
I actually meant to ask you what app that was because that was super cool.
Well, I got this for
you watch the
my
most recent sermon in the
8-year-old
series.
basketball team. Pastor Adam and I didn't want our kids to think that they were winning.
Right. So because they wouldn't use a real scoreboard, you made your own on your iPhone.
Yeah, and I showed them when you
So you
were
could
losing.
tell
I was
your
like,
kids when they're
they're like,
losing.
"Are we winning?" I'm like, "No, you're getting destroyed."
If you score, I will let you flip it up.
Yeah,
on the next,
and
on
if
the
we
next
win,
point.
I'll let you know. So,
Nice.
1-0 Broads.
All
I don't know
right,
if you
cool,
can
cool,
see
cool.
the score.
Who was the first one that said "I love you"? All right, right across the board.
All right.
Yeah.
It was all dudes. All right,
Point
point each, point
Yep.
each.
Yeah.
How about who's a better driver? Oof. Don't look at each other when you're choosing.
Oh, come on.
Who's been the only one that's gotten into a car accident?
That wasn't my fault, for starters. You haven't been in any car accidents ever?
Never. And who's the only one that's ever had a ticket?
That was my fault. That was my
You
fault.
won't even
I read
parallel
a
park uptown.
I
So
can do it. I just choose not to.
why?
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, so what's the better metric here? Like, would you say,
Yeah, how do
hey,
you
I'll do the
test?
parallel parking, or would you say you do the parallel parking?
I mean, if I can get you to do it for me, but it doesn't mean that you're better
fair
at it.
point. Fair
If
point.
we're driving from Fredericton to St. John in a snowstorm through Petersville Hill,
Yeah,
who's
who
driving?
drives?
I've driven in a
Oh,
million
let's go
blizzards.
recent. How about who's driving in large metropolitan areas in 6-lane
Well,
traffic?
that wasn't the question.
So why are you
argue
why are you
over it.
uncomfortable?
Overall,
Okay, we
all of
didn't
us
get a
individuals
point.
I am
believe that
clearly
we are
the better driver. You just forfeited a point.
I'm sticking to my answer that I'm the
We didn't get it either.
I think.
They didn't.
Oh,
either.
sorry, no points.
Neither
No
of us
points.
did.
Still 2-1 Broads.
How about this one?
All right.
Who's the better cook? Who's the better
That's
cook?
100%. That's
Flipping around.
an
That's
easy
easy.
question.
Good.
No
Good.
guy would even
I do like to cook,
wouldn't dare.
but I'm not as good as Kari. She's way better than I am.
unless the guy in the marriage is like actually a cook.
Yeah.
And he's
Right.
legit, like he
Like
wears
Dennis
that hat.
first cook.
Yeah.
Or he's like a hobbyist.
And Dennis probably would still say his wife, just to be nice.
Right. That's one of those stereotypical things. All right, I like this one.
All right.
Who's more likely to steal all the covers on a cold night?
Oh my gosh, that's so easy.
Definitely.
That's me for sure.
I
So
You
I'm
mean-
told.
You mean every
I
night?
go to bed and steal the covers.
Yes.
We don't even start that
Apparently,
way.
so do I. I've never seen it to witness it myself.
Well,
but
she wants to sleep in a pocket. Like she likes it all tucked in underneath.
Yes.
I pull the sheets out at the bottom.
I like the pocket.
Untucked.
I gotta do the
Yes,
pocket.
right?
No.
Because if you
We're both okay
untuck,
with the
then your
pocket, though, I
feet
think.
are sticking out.
No, you
get
wrap
cold.
the sheets around your feet.
Underneath your
Do you
feet.
like to be mummified?
Yes. I'm in a cocoon
Oh no.
when I
like
sleep.
The pocket.
A 5-pillow,
Yeah, it's
5-pillow cocoon.
it's a whole thing.
If there's a chance of my toes poking out the ends of the blankets, I'm out. I
Yes,
can't be doing
agreed.
that. That can't happen.
All right, it's
No way.
4-3 for the Broads. How much more? How many
Yes.
more
We
rounds?
got a few more
I feel like
here.
we're losing viewers.
How? Let's do. Who's more likely to max out the credit card? Oh, that's a good one.
Neither.
I would say.
Neither of us really.
Yeah, but if it was one of you, who
Who's
would it be?
gonna?
It would be
all right.
you. I'm cheap.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Wow. All right.
right.
Cool. All right. One more big one
All
here.
right. We're gonna lose.
Let's do. I want a really, really funny one though. Who's got a bigger wardrobe? That's a good one.
They're both really bad.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say you.
Yeah.
There we go. That's
I
probably
grudgingly
cool.
agree.
Awesome. There we go.
The only reason, though, is I will say this: the only reason your wardrobe's bigger than mine is you refuse to throw things out. I chuck everything out
That's
on
true.
That's true.
a consistent basis.
That is true.
I probably have gone through more clothes than you have in the last 5 years.
Definitely.
But you have the bigger wardrobe
Just
because
'cause
you
I
are a
hoard
hoarder,
them from, like,
and it's a
30
problem
years.
and a point of contention. Is that
30
in the-
years ago? Do you really have our clothing from 30 years
She's
ago?
got-
I do. I have a Mickey Mouse shirt I got when I was a kid.
Dang. I I thought you were bad with your Broncos T-shirt that you've had since
That was sentimental.
you were in high school, though. Yeah.
It's
Do we still have that?
nostalgia.
No.
Oh, it's gone now.
You have
Very good.
clothes that just there's no way you'll ever wear,
That's
and it's stuffing our closet.
It's true.
There's no need of it.
I don't even
Anyway, move on.
If you guys, if
We're
you
gonna end up
know
fighting.
someone who's a good therapist and you can
The
recommend,
odds,
we
the odds
could
of a
use some
fight
help.
before the end of this podcast are high.
high.
They're very
How
high.
often do we
This
talk
is
about,
dangerous.
How often do we
for
talk
us.
about in our marriage your closet?
On a fairly regular basis.
Quite a bit. Yes.
At our old
because
house,
I feel like we
But I
could
have
get
my
rid of
own
some of these.
closet, so it does.
It's true.
at our old
You
house,
have your own closet? We did
It's not a
at
big
our
closet, but there is
at
one.
our old house, she had the closet in our bedroom. I had no space in it. My closet was in Alex's room.
Nice. Because his clothes are tiny and don't take up much
Yes.
space.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense.
Now we have a bigger closet, and we were
split
in the
it.
move. We were able to make it work.
You made it
but
work.
Yeah.
You have your side, I have my side.
Yes,
All
it's
that.
working for now, but her collection continues to grow like a
I just
fungus.
got rid of a whole bunch of stuff for the swap.
A whole bunch of stuff, like a pair of pants, like one
Nice.
pair of pants probably.
Did you get rid of the Mickey Mouse shirt from your childhood, Mel?
It's nostalgia.
Right.
I can't get rid of.
Do you just pull it out and look at it sometimes?
Yes.
All right, while we're on couples conversations and stuff,
Yes.
we'll get into some of the content we've been talking about as a church. But tell us, so you guys met. How did you meet? Tell us the story. Tell King's Church.
How we
How the
met.
broads got together.
You can go first. Jump in.
Well, we both attended Kingswood University, and I moved up from Colorado. And I met Andy on the first night that I was at school.
This is a great story.
Yeah,
actually.
I was super nervous walking out to like the first group of people that I saw the very first time. There's a big group of people. There was one loudmouth that was carrying on in the group, and
In my defense, I did not know this was your first
You didn't know you were
exposure
on.
to like the.
yeah.
you
So
know,
I'm
being
trying
watched.
to just
Yes.
walk, meeting some people, being a wallflower, just taking it all in. And Andy looks at me, and to add to the story, my full name's not Kari, it's Kareen. And it's spelled.
Which is
I did not know that.
yeah, it's spelled Karreen.
fun facts.
Yeah, so I'm standing there, and then it was like freshman orientation week. I had a name tag on, and so he's like yelling and carrying on. And then he looks at me, and he sees my name.
Yelling and carrying on.
Oh, you definitely
I
were
was probably just chatting with some friends
loudly.
on the little
And
brick bridge.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yep.
yeah, and he stops and he looks at me and he goes, "Kareen, that's a weird name." And then everybody turns.
It was meant to be at that moment.
That was
Definitely.
What a pickup
we
line.
both remember that quite vividly
Yes.
for different reasons. It's not my finest moment. I don't even. To this day, I don't know. I can't say what I was thinking because I don't know. I think I was probably trying to be funny. Yes, being a loudmouth. But I meant to say, in my head, I think I was saying that's a unique name, which that's kind of cool because it's different. But it's come out, that's a weird name. Which is a total jerk move. But anyway, we fell in love in Western literature class.
That's
Thing,
you had
wasn't
lots of time to not pay attention to the class.
Yeah, right. Sorry, Professor Troughton, I think it was.
Oh man.
But
So,
Well, hey, that's so. Any singles out there, like it's possible
insult
to
them.
have
You
a
can do it.
terrible first impression
you can do it.
and work your way back from the depths.
Yeah, we were friends,
did it.
like really close friends for like 3 or 4 years. And it was like, hey, anybody else we've ever dated, we always want to be spending
Like
time
2.
with the other person. So we got married. It was perfect.
Hey, you want to get married? Sure.
Yeah. Not quite, but it's kind of like once we made the decision, it was pretty fast.
What is it with
But-
names? Like when you get someone's name wrong, or you say like it's so touchy, like
Right.
and you just want
Right.
to crawl under. So Sunday afternoon, I'm like in my garage, and a guy that I thought was a guy from our basketball league named Charlie. Like he's walking by, and I go, "Hey, Charlie!"
That's my worst nightmare right here.
And it turns out I walk up to him like, and talk to him because I haven't seen him, and it's my neighbor,
Next door.
my next door neighbor. And I was like,
dang.
"Oh, you're not Charlie, you're." I couldn't remember his name. His name's Dave. But I froze. Dave, if you're watching,
Sorry,
forgive
Dave.
me. I know your name.
Ellis.
But
You'll never forget it now.
I just froze. I was like, nice day. And then I turned around and went inside and crawled under a rock. And
You
anyway.
wept bitter tears.
Oh, man.
That's
Hey,
brutal.
Charlie.
That stinks.
Charlie.
So how'd you guys meet? What's your love story?
Well, I don't know when we would have first met. Would've-
You
You're a
Thought
few years
they
older
could've
than I am, so for the record.
That's a very
But,
polite way of saying.
Let's talk about that
Did
for a
you
while,
need to
guys.
share?
Well, no,
that?
I just want to go back in time and like you grew up at where our Valley campus is. We were Kings Valley, and you grew up here. And my uncle was the pastor, and so I would come down. My cousin and I were pretty much best friends. We hung out on the weekends a lot.
You were from Fredericton.
Yeah, and so I would come down here and stay at my cousin Brad's house, Don's house. So I'd be at Kings Valley services quite a bit, and we always used to like try to sit somewhere where Melanie Brewer was sitting because she was like this hot older girl.
Yeah.
So I always like admired her from afar, I guess, to put it lightly.
Can you imagine?
So did all. I mean, she was like the hot girl in the youth group. So we anyway, that's how I first came to know who she was.
Nice.
Who is that?
Do you remember him from those days, Mel?
No.
My first remembrance
was he the hot
of
guy?
you was when you were 13, and I came to Olivet with Heidi Norton.
My home church.
And you said to Heidi that I was cute, and Heidi's like, "Brent
That's
thinks
bold.
you're cute."
That's pretty bold.
13-year-old high school girl,
That's pretty good. That's pretty
middle
good.
school boy.
I was
It
like,
clearly
"Oh,
paid
that's
off
so
for you.
The confidence.
Eventually.
I'm proud of my 13-year-old confidence.
You can do a lot with confidence. It takes you places.
Man, it did work out. So no, we didn't really know each other though.
No.
And then I was friends with her brother, and her brother and my now sister-in-law kind of got
Set
things
us up.
rolling.
Set it up.
So I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. As far as I did ask for her number one
We already established
fateful
this. You made
night,
the first movement.
but
established
I
this.
was highly encouraged to do that because honestly,
By
and
my
this-
brother,
I'm
not
not
by
sucking up. I'm no by your brother, and actually no, it was more Liz, who was like, no, if you make a move, she like basically walked me up to the, because I just couldn't, and I don't mean
Just
this,
give it a shot.
I couldn't fathom. There's no way
That it
this
could
girl
happen.
actually wants me to call her, so it took a lot of hand holding to
You
get
thought
me
you
to
were-
get me to that
You thought
point.
you were being punked.
For real, I
Just
did. I was like,
and then just
come on,
goes so
please.
bad.
I hadn't had a whole lot of luck in the female department at that point, and to start there was a bit of a reach for me. But hey, I
Nice.
got her number. She talked to me.
called?
Yeah,
Ask me out.
and then we went on a double date in Fredericton.
Oh, the double
to
dates.
McGinnis Landing, which is now
American
closed.
Liz.
And then we where was our next date? We went to a
Do you remember
hockey
the second
game,
date?
Yeah.
which I don't even like hockey, so.
I don't know why we did that.
It's just something to do, I guess. And then it took off from there real fast. And within, I proposed within 6 months.
Just like university timeline.
Yeah, I would have been in end of third year.
Okay.
Like it was right, like kind of around Christmas time, a little later than that, third year, and then I was engaged my whole fourth year.
Yep.
So, and then we got married. I graduated in 2006. So we graduated, we got married, went on our honeymoon, moved here. It's and I started. So that's and I've been here 13 years.
Nice.
So,
That's awesome.
yep.
So one of the things we've been talking about in the For Better For Worse series we've been doing here at the church, if you haven't watched it, you can go back and tune in online. But that's a good jumping in point, I think, because we talked about like in marriage, like a lot of times we have ideas and expectations of what it's going to look like, right? So we just sort of basically walked up to that line when we all got married. Like, can we talk about our first year of marriage for just a little bit, and like what our expectations were versus like what actually transpired and what it looked like? Because people say stereotypically the first year of marriage is the most difficult, right?
Yeah, and your level of satisfaction is corresponding to like the gap between expectation and reality.
Exactly.
Right? And I don't know about how did yours go? Year one.
I'll let you go first. How's that sound?
It was easier than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, but I was hoping you would say the same thing. So,
you have to learn to all of a sudden be doing life with someone else, in a way that you've never done before. But there was things there was a giant learning curve of just understanding someone you care about a lot, and that like you care more about each other than just yourself now, that you don't just want to be the winner anymore, and you don't want to just be the one that's in charge, just trying to figure out how that stuff goes together. But Andy's pretty easygoing, so that's probably why it was pretty easy the first year.
That definitely helps to have that personality in your relationship.
Probably, yeah. And we had a bit of a jump start in that, like, we really were like best friends for a few years before we even started dating. So we knew there weren't a lot of surprises, let's say.
Right.
Right. Like we knew a lot about each other, probably more than like an average dating couple would, I'd say.
We definitely had the exact opposite.
Perfect. Good contrast.
It was
We weren't friends before we dated. It was
Right.
pure animal attraction.
Yeah, totally. Which a lot of people, like that's the way, I would say that's the way it goes for most people, right? Like most people have the luxury of being really good friends with
we're
He
someone.
dated my roommate, so
I did.
Yeah.
I was a total
You were a
jerk.
player, man. You played the field.
No, it wasn't a good, it was bad.
She might
Like
be watching. Be careful watching.
No, I don't mean that, but I mean the
she's
fact
lovely.
that like I was already, like I should have known better before I was even dating other people at that point, but I was dumb.
Our first year was tough. We don't have anybody who's easygoing in this relationship, so that
No takers.
no,
takers.
that's just not been a thing. Neither one of us are easygoing. So
Right.
we are opposites definitely attract, and we're very different in a lot of ways. But
Yeah.
on the
Laid back,
strong-willed, opinionated, like again, when we are aligned, things are amazing, and when we're not, we go at each other
Sure.
pretty good. So.
Part of it, though, was I lived alone for
Yeah.
a long time before you came around.
Oh,
so I had
okay,
my
yeah, that's a
own
whole other
space.
dynamic,
I
yeah.
had my own. Everything was mine.
Well, and like-
now I have to share my space with you.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is
I came
huge.
crashing into your world,
Yes.
and that was difficult. The expectations too, like one of the things I think is really helpful in like pre-marriage counseling, which we really didn't do this. I would say some of our pre-marriage stuff was good on a
We did
spiritual
do
level.
some.
Yeah, but it was more spiritually focused, which I'm really thankful for now. But we probably could have been helped our first year working through some of the actual, like most of our big issues weren't.
Practical stuff.
Yeah, it was more practical than it was like who you are as a person. And so it's like, you learning to share your space, that you've had your own apartment for 4 years and your own car, which is
My
now
own
my car,
money.
and your own money. And you even then made more money than I did, right? Like all those things was really complicated. The expectations of being a newlywed, like for me, she's not my mom. She's not folding, every piece of laundry. I have responsibilities in the house too.
Yeah.
We don't have sex every day. All that stuff, like for real. In your first year of marriage, when you're fresh out and you're like
Right.
coming out of Bible college, and I'm like saving myself for marriage. I have
Sure.
this like real.
That's a Bible college dude
Here we go.
problem. Yeah.
Right, and
Yeah.
so just all that stuff, and we our first few months, like after the honeymoon, a lot of adjustments, and we it was tough.
It was rough.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
So, but it, we go back to, we'll talk about conflict resolution, but we did turn out for the better because of it. Like, I think one of the things a lot of couples end up quitting right before it actually gives birth to something better,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it,
Everybody has a tough year, whether or not it's your first year. Like you get there eventually.
I would say every year's gotten better for us.
You ever hear old people say? I feel like I'm saying old people because I feel like I haven't heard younger people say this. But apologies if I'm offending anyone. But the old saying, like, we've never had a crossword. Have you guys heard that? Like some couples will say
Yeah,
that.
that's not
bullcrap.
that's not for us.
Not true.
Or there's
Yeah.
something wrong.
Yeah,
Right.
or one of you is miserable.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think it was all of the
Yeah.
inside, and you're gonna die of like a ulcer very soon.
Yeah. So that's certainly a huge thing I think people go through, though, is that just the clash of expectations in
Right.
the first year. I think the more you can.
Right. Somebody out there right now is in their first year of marriage or preparing to get married. Like, what would we say to them having done it? Like, what pro tips or hacks could we give them for the first year of marriage?
I think if we had known what those, like, if we had some of those conversations, like if she was more mentally prepared that, hey, you're now going to live with another human who happens to be a dude.
Share your stuff.
Who happens to have just lived 4 years with a bunch of other dudes. He had his own apartment with 2 dudes.
Very close quarters.
And then he lived in a basically a barn with a bunch of guys in a dorm. And
Right.
so,
Right.
like, he's just not going to play along well with how you've had everything in just so. So that would have been helpful. How she would have related to me would have been helpful, whether it's through not just sex and stuff like that, but just like how you talk to me and those kind of things. Like that would have been helpful to have processed through up front, you know.
Yeah.
In counseling?
Yeah, for sure. Like, and the counseling I've been involved in since then has definitely had more of that in it.
Yeah.
Our counseling was more focused on spiritual healing and history and stuff like that, which was really good. And I would recommend that highly. But we didn't get into like, this is what it means to be married.
Right.
You're not, you know, that thing you do, you can't do that anymore. And you know that expectation you have, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Like that talk,
That's
I think
gone
would
forever.
be like really clarify, like have that conversation, you know, like whether it's a sex thing, like how many times, like what is a good amount per week?
What are we
What's
shooting for
the
here?
realistic?
You know, yeah, because
It's a
what do you
ballpark
think? And I was
figure.
thinking like 8 or 9,
Yeah.
and she was thinking 0. So we're
days
gonna
in a
have
week?
to
14? All right.
You know, no, it wasn't. But like that, we're thinking that and having those conversations. I think that's huge.
Yep.
That'll save a lot of heartache. It's just that disappointment, right? Like it's disappointment, frustration that comes from faulty expectations.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that comes into, like, we talk a lot about, and you've talked a lot about this, Brent, even in the series already, that when it comes to marriage, like, the key to success is mutual voluntary submission.
Yeah.
Right? And even like scripture has laid that out for us pretty well. And like even in a first year, like I would say to someone who's getting ready to get married, who's in the first year of marriage, like you've got to be prepared to say, I think any new season of life or new relationship you're entering into, like there's got to be an element of saying like, all right, I'm going to have to be willing to give up or to sacrifice some of maybe the things I used to like. Not that you change yourself or you have to become a totally different person, but you've got to be willing to give a little, right?
You have
like,
to make sacrifices.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100% you do.
And you have to realize that.
Like maybe
just-
I don't get to squeeze the toothpaste tube from the bottom anymore. Like
just not
maybe I just have
gonna
to
be
pick
able
up
to.
that wrinkled, shriveled thing. This happens more with the kids now. I found out that they're using the toothpaste tubes. Like I'm like, but it just has to be like, that doesn't have to be an issue for me.
And
Yeah.
just the way that you've always done something doesn't mean that it's like there's a right or the wrong
Yeah.
way. Like that was actually a pretty
That's
big
been one
thing
of our
for
big
us
ones.
is that like he would do things a certain way and I like he cares about things being done a particular way more than I do.
Yeah.
And so he would have things like things need to be done a certain
Which
way.
is in direct juxtaposition to my easygoing personality.
And then, so maybe it's not something that I even cared about or thought was important.
Right.
And I would do something a different way. And he would get like frustrated because I wasn't doing it right. And it was one of those things that it's like, and I remember we had this big blowout and I was like, just because I'm not doing something the way that you do it doesn't mean I'm doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Like we're different people and that needs to be okay.
Yeah. Right.
And that you can decide like how things need to be done in your home and that sort of thing, but
Yeah.
there needs to be a melding.
And that was a light
of
bulb
that.
moment for me. I remember that one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're really merging not just two people, but two family histories. You're
Right.
merging like that whole culture you grew up in, right or wrong, right? Like you're coming with expectations on how we do things, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
How you
there's
fold a t-shirt,
yeah,
right? Like
Yeah.
there's different ways to do it. People
Like,
do it differently.
I would say though, like one of the reasons it says in the Bible, like a man for this reason, it says, for this reason a man leaves his mother and father and cleaves to his wife. I think part of the difficulty we have in year one, and I would say this for me was, like I come from a very healthy, and so does she, like a good tight family, and learning how to fully engage in my marriage. Like there's maybe this sense for some people that if I don't know if we think in terms of I'm actually leaving that part of my life, and maybe to a degree that we need to, in a healthy way to engage properly in the marriage relationship. And I think we're trying to like fit two worlds into one, and it causes problems. I would say I did that in our first year more than you did, and I've had to learn how to, and a family has to learn. I was my parents' first child being married, so was she. Like a family's got to learn. Or no, she wasn't. I was the first one though in my family, and we have to learn how to. Okay, how does this work now? How are we a family? How are we the Ingersolls? And yet we're now merged with the Brewers, and how is that going to work?
It's a lot of different relational dynamics.
Totally, and it's like
for everybody to navigate.
We do, and everyone's biased to their own upbringing too. Like you ask me or my sister, like we're going to say how we did things is way better than how they did. Please,
Right,
right? And vice versa.
This is how you do Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. That is not Christmas.
Yeah.
And it's like
Holidays are a big one too, right? Because you've got your traditions built in around that.
I think the harder, again, and I'm not advocating family's so important, like immediate family's so important, but I think the harder that you can commit to one another and say we are establishing our family, even as a married couple without kids, like We're establishing this is us now. And yes, we're going to be products of our family. We're not cutting them loose by any means, but this is one, and this is 1A, you know, like, and that's 1A and 1B. And so that's a huge thing to navigate through.
Yeah.
For sure.
That is, and we do some of that too. Like I remember, and it wasn't even necessarily that intentional, I guess, but it's a good point, because like even with like our first Christmas together, like we decided that we just like on the actual like Christmas day or whatever, like we wanted to have, like as a married couple, we didn't go home to anybody's house. Like we wanted to have that Christmas with just us kind of thing. And so it's kind of like what you're talking about, right? To say like we'll start some new traditions.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff we still carried on now that we've got kids and things like that. Yeah. Obviously our families are a part of Christmas and things like that, but
there's weight to that. And I don't think a family thinks through, like there's weight to and implications, and we'll go through this when our own kids get married, but like I don't think we are fully realistic as to what it means to like give your child away in that way.
Right.
Like I think some parents are trying maybe ours weren't bad with this, but like some parents maybe try to stay too in there, and it really complicates
that's
things.
where in-laws becomes a thing, right? Like
it
every marriage
is
you
for
talk
sure.
about in-laws.
And
like,
I think the reason the in-laws are the problem is because again we're biased to our own family.
Right,
So we're like,
exactly.
well, your guy, if they would just stop pressuring us, because you don't see what your family's doing as pressure. You see that as that's right.
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 You know?
But for someone who's watching this that has kids or the age where their kids are starting to get married, or your kids are fairly newly married, like that's definitely something to consider. Like as the parent of a married person, like you need to be careful, like for the success of your child's marriage, like how you navigate and interact with all of that.
Yeah, you really have to let them, and it's just tough. It's tough for
Give them
parents.
space.
I've seen it. You know, my parents, all three, like my brother and my sister and I, we're all married and have had to watch them let all three of us establish our own lives and figure out how to navigate that as still a family unit. So that's tough. It is hard. There's certainly a separation and a coming together. The separation is hard and the merging is hard. But I think everything gets better with that stress that comes upon it. It causes, we have to work through these things.
Right.
Yeah.
Like we're better people now. Like and I don't mean this like to say the right thing. Like she really has made me a better person, and I think I've made her a better person.
Yep.
Through some of the difficulty, and like her selfishness was confronted. My selfishness was confronted when we first got married, and it's like marriage forces it. You really do have to die to self to a large degree.
For sure.
You know. So
For sure. And in that, and in the sharpening and the building each other is conflict, right?
Yes,
we talked about
conflict
just this last week,
resolution.
if you're watching Brent's message, it was all on the thing we all have in common as every married couple is that we fight, right?
you might.
Yeah, right. I was just gonna say, except
We
for us.
only did year one. We only fought the first year.
And then after
Yeah.
yeah.
And then
same
we
way.
put
figured
that
it all
behind
out.
us.
There was no more issues, right? Can we so getting into the conflict thing? Can we talk about some of our pet peeves for a second, maybe? What are our
gonna cost
biggest?
Let's just open the
What
can,
are our
Andy.
biggest pet peeves?
About the
I-
other person?
I would let you go first, Kari.
Oh, I'm drawing
'Cause
a
I'm a
blank.
nice guy.
Not because
Oh,
you don't
wow.
have. I just am drawing.
Being put on the spot like that.
Yeah. He is the loudest eater,
Oh.
like in the history of anybody in the entire world.
Oh no.
Yeah.
He.
No,
Again,
no denying
so
it.
I'm told. That's like the covers hogging thing. Like in my experience, it's never been an issue. But so I'm
So
told.
that is probably the.
Anything.
That would drive us crazy too,
yeah.
just to validate, you know.
Yeah.
That is probably
sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of things mutually peeve us off. That's worked really well and been really bad. Again, like when we're aligned, it's awesome. Like we're right and everyone
Sure.
else is wrong.
Sure. And this
But
is how
then
we do,
when
this is
that
how we
crosses
roll.
paths, it's not great. So
Yeah.
what's your pet peeve? Pick one.
Oh
Pick one.
man.
Start.
Pick five.
What's the low hanging fruit?
You know what you do is the noise that you go.
That one?
Like, why
like
are
a-
you
like a
doing
tick?
I
that?
clear my sinuses or something.
All the
Something
time.
weird.
Yep.
I'm like,
It
stop
drives her
doing that.
bonkers.
Nice.
Bonkers.
Nice.
Sometimes I'll do it just to bother her. I'm like, oh.
I
If you know, if you're
know.
conscious of it.
Oh, he's conscious.
But it's like the subconscious things are hard, right?
Is it like
Yeah.
a stress tick or?
No, I just get congested and it's like a sniffle, but it's
It's
more than a
not a
sniffle. It's a
sniffle,
deep
though.
in my brain
It's a-
sniffle.
I can't even do
It's
it.
way back in my head. It's really gross.
Right.
Like, truly gross.
awful.
Sorry, people.
not bringing that one on the podcast.
Might not be
huh?
pleasant things. that-
Yeah, yeah. What's your pet peeve?
I would
Yeah.
say you're excited for this, aren't you? For me, I think I'd probably say like clutter things would be the biggest one. Like I'm more like put everything away. That's a good example. I'm more of a put everything away as I'm using it. So if I would take something out, I would use it and then put it back away, right? And you're more of a get everything out and get it all together so we can see what we've got, and then we'll use it all, and then we'll put it away after, right? And so it's like things like that. Whether it's cooking, like cooking in the kitchen would be one thing, or...
Yeah, but you take that way too much to extreme.
What do you mean?
Well, like yesterday, I was making lunches for the boys.
This happened this morning too, actually, didn't it?
No, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday, okay.
I was making
My days are blending
lunches,
together.
and I got stuff out for a sandwich. It's not like I'm getting everything out. I had the ham, cheese, and bread out.
So she's
and
pulling
the
out
mayo.
all the items that you need to make
Like, it's not
Putting
getting...
them away. She uses.
And I turn around, and he put away the bread before I even got out the bread, and then he put away the mayo, and I was like, "What are you doing?"
I
And this
get
is
that.
this is a constant,
I thought I was helping, in my
constant
defense.
thing.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm drinking something, you put it away when I'm not even done with it. Like, it's a thing.
I feel like that's a big pet peeve for you. With
Well,
me.
yeah, 'cause I'm drinking. Yes, it is.
Like, I don't know how many times I have dumped out a beverage that I assumed hasn't been touched in
At least
hours
10
or
minutes.
days.
At
Yeah,
least
it's been a while.
The 10-minute rule. If
And
you're
I'm,
not
like,
there-
I'm cleaning up and I'm dumping it out, and then you're like, "Hey, where's my seltzer water?
Oh,
Or where's
man,
that cup of coffee that I was
It's
drinking?"
because you guzzle things so quickly
I
that
do.
you don't have something that's left out. I don't need to guzzle
like
it for a second.
I barely would set a
Anyway.
drink down until it's gone. If I set it down, then it's pretty much done.
Anyway,
That's pretty much how it works out for us. That's my
Yeah,
pet peeve is she can function in organized chaos. As long as something is where she put it.
It's
But the problem is where she
Right.
put it is not the right place.
Right.
To you.
You have a better
And that
place.
drives me bonkers. I don't care if there's a layer of dust this thick on stuff. Dirt, nah. Stuff has to be where it's supposed to go.
Right.
Don't leave stuff
Says
out.
the guy whose
Don't
jean
hang.
shorts are
Don't
laying
hang.
on the floor in our bedroom.
Don't hang drying articles of clothing.
She has an issue in
in-
it. Like,
she
if
hangs-
you
no,
want to
listen.
put it in the dryer, you'd hang it.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
gotta
but
do
she
it,
hangs
right?
it in the door. I'm
Where are you
6'2".
gonna hang it?
I'm 6'2". I
Do it
got a
right
limbo
now.
to get into my own
I do
room
it
sometimes.
That's a little brutal.
Terrible.
Yeah.
Life is
I get
so
that.
hard.
Anyway.
well, something that might
I'll
help
get
you
you
is
guys
a
a
drying
drying
rack.
rack.
I would love it.
I don't think she'd use it because that's her system.
Right.
She's been doing
Yeah.
that for years.
You did that when you lived
It's
alone in
effective.
your
On the
On
apartment.
the shower
right, Melanie?
curtain,
Before you get married.
in our
Yes.
door jamb. I'm like, can I just
There you
walk
go.
I don't
into my
wanna
room without
shrink my
ducking? I would love to walk into my room without ducking, just once.
You have to admit it's gotten so much better.
It
since
has.
we
Our-
moved.
our new
You don't
house
have
has
to do
helped
that.
out a
Because I have
ton.
more space to
Yes,
do things.
that has helped a lot. We were in a very small house for our size family.
Yeah.
Now you hang it all in the kids' rooms. It's hanging from
In the
their ceilings.
kids' bathroom. Yes.
I would say for how we manage our size family, there are people who have bigger families than us that manage just fine. Like they Marie Kondo their things, but you
I don't Marie
you are
Kondo
the opposite.
anything.
Whatever Marie Kondo is, you're the opposite. You need your own Netflix special to show
How'd
what
you hoard?
how to give
Feels like
Marie
you're good.
Kondo an aneurysm. Like that's what her Netflix
There's
special.
probably a
is gonna be.
market for that, honestly.
Yes.
The Marie Kondo thing is about something you probably.
Yeah, it's called. There is a show. It's called Hoarders. And
Right, but they're not
she's-
presenting it in a positive light. That's a bad thing on that show.
There can be positive.
She watches it because it makes her feel better. Legit.
I love
See, I'm not
hoarders.
that
She
bad.
watches.
See, look how
she
clean
watches
I
Hoarders,
am.
because it makes her feel like,
Rats.
look how clean our house is. Look how clean it is compared to theirs.
Right.
Yeah, that's what that is. Anyway,
I'm definitely the Marie Kondo in our relationship, if there was one.
I am.
I would-
I'm not a Marie Kondo. I would just chuck stuff out.
Right.
I would
Yeah,
have-
I can't fold my t-shirts into cool little pyramids or whatever she does. But
If I was a bachelor, I would like have nothing.
The
I
bare
would have
essentials.
bare counters. It would look like a prison cell that was all
I
white
find
like
this
Steve
really
Jobs.
hilarious
Coffee pot,
considering how
toothbrush.
many of your clothes are on the bathroom floor
Yeah,
right
but
now
when
and
it's
next to the bed.
as it's supposed to be.
I find this hilarious.
Yeah, because I get up early and I don't want to wake you up.
There are so
where
many
they go.
clothes on the bathroom floor, but he's like, I put
It's because I'm
everything
serving you.
away.
It's because I get up early and I don't want to
What does that have to do with
ram or I put my stuff away. What do I do when
if you
I'm the
bring it
last
back
one
in the
up?
room, puts it
I
in
make the bed.
hamper,
I put
then
stuff
It
away.
wakes you up.
Well,
So-
but the only place that I don't have that like it's our bedroom that's like that. It's not the entire house.
With the clothes
you
on
make
the
me
floor,
sound
you
like
mean?
a pig.
I like when the bed's
Right,
made.
totally.
I like when there's natural light shining in. She would live in like
Cave.
Bilbo Baggins' house would be perfect
That's
for her.
Andy.
Bilbo
In a
Baggins.
hole in the side of the hill, she would live in there. She wants to be cozy. I would live at like the Apple headquarters, where it's like everything's
Wow.
clean and pristine and
Glass
anyway,
walls.
That's
Yes.
and everything.
It's cold. That's cold.
Yeah, I can do cold as long as the heat's on. Like,
For sure.
Anyway.
Okay, so we know that conflict is a thing. We've all been there. One of the things that you said, Brent, last week was that conflict. There's two different kinds of conflict. In
Yes.
marriage, right? Conflict can be both constructive and
Destructive. Yeah.
right? We all know about the destructive conflict, I think, but what does constructive conflict look like in a marriage?
How do you work that out? Like, what? Maybe better. How do you guys navigate? I would say a lot of constructive conflict is retroactive. Like, a lot of the time, you did the destructive thing, and now you got to go back and you got to pick up the pieces that you broke, and then start repairing the problem. It's really hard in relationships. And that's why I kind of ended off the sermon like, look, short of the grace of God, this stuff's just not going to go well.
Right.
Like, you really need a heart change to be able to like just be selfless all the time. It's just not natural.
Yeah.
So, but for the sake of the relationship, to figure out ways like, you know, if it might come as a surprise, but in arguments, I'm very quick to words. And I
Really?
don't have a
I'm
problem.
sure everybody's
Really?
shocked.
I don't have a problem.
Yes.
Just let's go. All right, let's go, and we're gonna get this done.
Yeah.
So, you know, had to
handled.
learn how to slow down on some of that, and you know, listen
Yeah.
is key for me.
Sure.
I think it just depends on your personality. Like, being constructive is figuring out where my strengths cease being my strengths and start being a weakness, and vice versa, and figuring out how to complement one
ground.
another in those. Right? If she's the opposite. She's not going to volunteer her. She'll volunteer her frustrations, but not her feelings. Like, we'll have to like dig deeper on that. Like, and like,
there.
why do you actually feel like that? And,
Interesting.
And I'll jump right to that. And
Sure.
so we've had to learn how to, like, if we're actually going to get somewhere productive, which we're still working on, like in conflict, honestly, like,
Because you have,
'Cause-
that's where the constructive thing comes in, right? You have to have conflict. Like we said
Yes.
before, there is no marriage without conflict. If
Yeah.
you didn't have conflict, it wouldn't be good because somebody would be dying on the inside. Like, conflict is a way for you to figure out how to resolve issues and to get better. And it does. Like, whenever you have a huge fight, like, typically the next few days are much better, right? Once you crest the hill, sure, some of them
Yes.
drag out a little bit, but once you crest the hill, it's like, okay, now we've arrived, we've come to a mutual understanding on
Right.
whatever this is, we've figured it out, and now we're better for it
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
like, make-up sex is a thing.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
Yeah, like all that, like, just the
it's like, all right,
conflict
cool, I
does
still
give
love
birth
you,
to more
even though-
intimacy. It really does. Like, it's contractions in your relationship.
Yeah.
You're giving birth to something better.
To use a beautiful
As long as it's not
analogy.
destructive.
Yeah.
Like-
Yes.
And that was something I had to learn. Like, Andy and I grew up in very, very different households,
Right.
and handled things very differently. And so, like, for me, I grew up in a home that, and in just a place and a time that, like, I had to fight. I had to fight to survive. I had to fight to do life. Had to, like, everything was a fight.
Right.
And so learning to fight in a constructive way was really hard for me. Like, I can go for the jugular quicker than anybody, even if I'm not meaning to.
Yeah.
Like, even if I'm not trying to be hurtful, I can, like, slice, like, specifically, like, with Andy and I. And so I had to learn to try to look at everything to be building. Like,
Yeah.
what am I trying to accomplish out of this?
Yeah.
And I remember that was one of the things, like, when we first got married, is like, if we got into a disagreement or fight, and I would just instantly get elevated.
Yeah.
And I remember one time Andy just looked at me, and I felt so little afterwards. He was like, "Why are you yelling?" And
Yeah.
it wasn't even something worth, like, screaming and yelling about, but I just instantly went to
Went there.
100.
Yeah.
And so even learning to, like, everything I've known up to this point of how I function in life, and which has got me where I am,
Yeah.
like, that got me through a lot, but doesn't mean that that's healthy.
Right.
Like, just because of who I am,
You have to
like,
shift
doesn't mean
that.
right doesn't mean that it's healthy. And then even on the flip side for Andy, like opposite, same thing, learning to express his emotions and talk about things, and not just like, yeah, we're good, like, fix it,
Yeah.
but to, like, okay, what's at the core of that.
Yeah. I think one of the things I said in the sermon was, like, I think a lot of the time our conflict boils down to fighting for personal victory instead of, like, marital unity or marital vitality. And
Right.
I think if we could go into marriage conflict with, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Do you love me? Do you love me? Like a lot of that reactive kind of the reason we get like into fight mode is because we're scared. There's there's something we're scared of that we think they're actually gonna ruin, right? There's something it's self-preservation is what it is.
Yep.
Right.
Which is such a lie if you really do love one another and you really are committed. I don't know why. I mean, it's just, again, you grow up with that. It's the world we live in. We live in a fallen world. We live where there's difficulty, and you know, you do have to fight. And it's such a counterintuitive thing to now share your life with someone who really, you know, they say they're for you, and most of the time that seems very apparent. But there are times where it's like, well, in this case, it doesn't seem like you're for me, and here's why. Now I have to protect, you know, that.
But at the core, are you for me? Like that's what it needs to.
I think that would bring, if we could really believe that, I think it would bring a lot of guards down. Because that's what happens. You get into your default mode, whether you're the vicious fighter person. I am in our relationship. Like, and same thing. I can go for the jugular so fast, and there's been times, same thing, where I've had I wasn't even. I sometimes don't even know. Like, I can just get to words so quick, and there's been times where I've hurt her, and I saw it happen, and I was like, oh, I didn't mean it to hurt that bad. Yeah. So that's hard to know, again, but you get so into yourself in those moments, and you're not even thinking about them, and like you need that moment almost where you're like, whoa, I just went way further than I wanted to even. I just wanted to protect this. I didn't want to hurt you. So good. I just wanted to protect this. But you lose sight of both those things when you get kind of self-focused in those moments.
Or when you're hurting, like when that pain's real, like whether it's a pain from the past or whatever that pain is, like when that's like that is there and it's hurting, and it feels like someone's, even if it's whether it's intentional or not intentional, and they're causing that to hurt more, that you become like trying to protect yourself. But like I think that we need to, in marriage, whatever stage we're at, like realizing that we do have hurts and pains, and that we need to allow God to heal us. But sometimes for me, like a huge part of that was being involved in a healthy relationship, like being in a healthy marriage, like with like I don't know who could have taken me besides Andy, like to really take, and through that I've been like, God is healed me in miraculous ways, and that seeing other people and just understanding like, oh, that is what health looks like. And no, that's not perfect, but that's what health looks like. And to then not feel like that I have to stand up for myself, because I know I have other people. I have Andy's to stand up for me.
It does help you filter your other relationships way better once you like. I mean, this is your most intimate one. It's the realest, rawest one you've got, and so like, if you can allow that resolution those things to build you, like if my words cut her, then maybe I come off that way with everybody else too, and I just don't see it, and I got to actually see what I'm capable of, like what my strength is able to do in a weak way, you know. And it's the same whether it's our personality in the relationship. Like clearly we're probably the fighters, and you maybe are the ones that are more dismissive of it and just avoiders maybe. But
it's easier that way.
Same thing. But same thing though.
So much easier.
But you probably could attest to how dealing with stuff has helped though. Like avoiding is not the answer either. Attacking isn't the answer.
No, but you wouldn't let me avoid even if I wanted to.
No, but at the same time, we wouldn't be where we are if we just avoided all our issues. We wouldn't have made it out of year one. Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, Kari's brought things out of me and like helped me to process things that I like never would have ever processed on my own. I'm just not people might be surprised by this. Like like Kari would be the first to say, I'm not an empathetic person at all. Like a lot of people would assume that because I'm nice and I'm personable, that I'm also empathetic, but I'm actually really bad at like feeling what other people feel, or like
he has no emotions.
How I make other people feel. Yeah. And so it's hard for me when someone is like in an emotional situation. It's hard for me to really relate to it and process it. So it's been really, really good for me that way.
I think that's the purpose of like why God designs us like to be attracted to our opposite like that. Like I think it does,
because it builds.
You are incomplete, like you really are, and you know, again, I do rip on Jerry Maguire and this whole "you complete me" thing. You know, no person's going to complete you. But she compliments me. I really have gotten not just does she bring strength to my weakness, but she's helped me refine my strength and understand it better, right? Like, and vice versa. Like, that's such a cool thing, you know, that in all of the ways you're one way, she's another. And it's like, it's a beautiful thing if we'll stay committed to it.
Yeah.
It does bring about just fruitfulness.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that we've kind of like learned too, and that you were talking about strengths and weaknesses, right? Like, there are always going to be areas in any relationship where one person's got an obvious strength, right? And maybe an area where one person's got an obvious weakness. And like, we've learned like over the years, like it's been totally okay for me to go like, and us for her to understand this is something that Kari obviously is an area she's strong in, an area that I'm weak in. So I'll let her lead the way in this, and vice versa, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that's true?
Yeah, like we don't just look at anything to be like, oh, that's his role or her role. That we look at doing life together with, who's
and then that's not a bad thing, right? And it does take some humility on your part, I think, sometimes to be willing to say like, I just know and understand like this is an area that you're strong in that I'm weak in, and understanding that when the other person gets stronger and succeeds in an area of your life, like that it actually benefits you too.
I think
builds the whole relationship.
That benefit's a huge word in there. It's like with what makes destructive conflict is when we're afraid, first off, you know, we're protecting something, and we don't have incentive to actually like get somewhere better. You know, I think that's what keeps us from diving into.
Well, that's, I mean, saying like that, like to say like if we could start to see our conflict with our spouses as opportunities, like opportunities to actually grow and better ourselves as a person, that changes the game too, right?
Or
to
like,
know that,
like
even if it's annoying and I'm hating it in the moment and it's ridiculous and I can't believe you would do this, like, okay, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to grow as a person, like for me to learn something or to see things from a different perspective that will help me and shape me as a person, even outside of this relationship.
Yeah,
right? Like what you were just saying.
If we can just chase this down, we're both going to be happier. If we just don't let this go, we're both going to be happier, and the household's going to be better.
For the sake of getting better, not just for the sake of resolving the conflict.
Yeah.
And I think that is the difference, where that's something once we realized that was where we were missing, is that like, we might have this conflict, and like, the conflict got fixed, but we would be right back to it again before you knew it. And that was something that realizing like the difference between Andy and I is that like, for me, I quickly wanted to know this is the issue and this is what needs to be fixed and these are the steps to fix it. And for Andy, like it was more so, okay, but we fixed it. Like it's fine. Like why would we bring that up again and cause more another fight or whatever it is? And realizing to be able to, and sometimes I just need to shut up though and let stuff go. And so taking both of those things and looking at the situation to say, but what is going to make us better?
Right. Yeah. So you guys have, we talked last week in the sermon, we talked about like some of the standards that love sets, like almost like as a rule of thumb, you know, like when you can't really trust your heart in those moments. Your heart's just going to go to self-preservation mode.
100%.
So like to have some of those standards out there that says, look, love, this is what love does. Love doesn't fly off the handle. Love isn't me first. Love keeps no score, doesn't keep score, records of wrong. It keeps us cool. I forget what the other ones are. There's a bunch of them.
Yep.
Do you guys have any practical, hey, we've learned that if we're going to have healthy conflict, like here's some rules that we follow, here's some things some standards we've set in our own relationship? Like, do you guys have anything like that where you're like, you know, some couples have, you know, I'm going to go for a walk and we'll come back and talk about this. Like, do you guys have anything like that?
That's one of the things that I think I had to learn, like, oddly enough, in the beginning of our relationship, like right in the very beginning when we first started having like our big conflicts. For me, I think because I'm more of an avoider, like when there was an issue, I would just be like, hey, we have to talk about this right now. Let's just get it over with, right? Not because I was necessarily wanting to do it. I just wanted to get it over with, and learning that it was actually like there were times when I had to give Kari space. Like I had to give you space to be able to wrap your head around what was going on, or before we were going to be able to have a healthy conversation.
Because
that was a big one for me.
Trying not to blow up, like knowing I was there, just saying like, hey, give me a couple minutes,
Sure.
in like literally 5 minutes, and then I can come back
Yeah.
to this. But just needing to like go in my room, shut the door, crawl in bed for a second.
So because she's an escalator and I'm a stuffer or whatever, like
Yeah.
it's better for us
psychological
to have some
terms.
space. Yeah, right. I heard I was at a marriage seminar one time, and I remember the term for escalator. I just call it a stuffer. I don't know what
suppressor.
that is.
Yeah.
Suppressor, maybe. He had a cooler word than that.
Probably.
But anyway, but that's something that we've learned that's really helped us a lot. Is just for me to go, I don't have to, because I want to press the issue just to get it over with, right? Again,
Right.
like you were saying, we fixed that already. Why would we ever open that can of worms again? So I'm like, let's just rip it off, rip the Band-Aid off, get it done, and then it's over with. But,
And another big thing that's helped for us is for me to say, like, if it's a situation, whatever, is to say, this is how you made me feel.
Yeah.
Like when you chose to be an hour and a half late and forget the milk, when you chose that, it made me feel unimportant.
Right.
That all those other things were important. Like to say, or like it might even be something stupid. Like sometimes you have those stupid conflicts and like it's really bothering one person, like bothering me. And for him, he's like, that is not that big of a deal. I just did this, like get over it.
I didn't mean anything
But
by
then,
it or,
right. And like, no, he's not maliciously trying to be hurtful at all.
Yeah.
But for me to say, okay, and me be able to articulate it for myself. But when you do that, this is how it makes me feel.
Right.
That was a huge shift in us because again, he just is like so practical that it like this is not that big of a deal. This isn't even worth having discussion about.
Yeah.
But for me, it might have really bothered me. But when I was able to say this is how it made me feel, then he was like, oh, okay, like it, and being able to work
It's
through
the
that a little
nail
bit.
thing, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's not about the nail.
the nail stuck in the fork. That's a video
Yeah.
from the sermon this past week. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the hard part there is like both of us, like whether you have the nail in your head or you just need to be heard, both need to serve one another, right? Like the person with the nail in their head does need to like, okay, this doesn't need to be that complicated,
Right.
But at the same time, it's not okay to just bypass feelings. And I do that all the time. Like I'm just like I'm not even going there with you. I'm not even I've been bad at that. In that whole how do you feel?
Yeah, you don't use that very often.
That's
No, that's been a growth area for me for sure. I'm
And
just
sometimes when you fly off or you go straight to your words, then I retreat.
yes.
I do.
Push her away.
I say I need to have a few minutes.
That's
to
because like
myself.
the worst in us brings out the worst in the other person.
Does.
sometimes too, right? Which
Yeah.
is crazy. The best brings out the best, and the worst brings out the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how do you fight for the best, right, in your marriage?
It takes someone going first. Like at the end of the day, it takes someone saying,
Humility, tons of humility.
that must be really hard. That, it really does. Like if someone will just go first, love goes first, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
or goes second. Like it lets you have your way.
Yeah.
The hard part is true letting someone go first is doing it without. Sometimes you'll do it really with a string attached. Like, okay, I'll let you go so you can let me go.
Right.
That's really what's happening. It's
Right.
retroactive. But the stuff that heals relationships and actually brings life is like, I'm just going to give up my right to be right and go there. That's the hard part. I think that's what makes it work, though. Times we have made it work is when someone just, okay, I'm sorry I threw your half-drinking bottle of Perrier water out.
I wouldn't
sorry.
say that causes massive blowouts.
No.
How many times do you think I've done that in a relationship? It's been way too many.
That was our last fight.
How many days have we been married?
Was it?
Yeah.
Our last
Yeah.
fight was over
10
a
years.
half-drunken
Because you
bottle
dumped
of
out my water.
water.
I was like, I always pull you always, which is so wrong.
You
Yes.
always
So
is a
wrong.
great.
You
Is a
should
great
just
word in
never-
marriage, isn't it?
Never say you
Never
always.
say
Anything
never.
that's followed
or
by
always.
you
That's my
always.
best marriage. There's a new
There you go.
hack.
First
Don't ever
year,
say.
first year marriage hack right there, guys. Eliminate the words "you always" from your
always.
vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You haven't been
Don't
do
together
that.
long enough to even
Yes.
have the data
Even if you've
on
been married
that.
for 50 years, you always
Yeah, it's
is
never a good
probably
start.
not going to be a good start
Never.
to a conversation.
Painting
ever.
with broad strokes, just not good.
Yeah. Broad strokes, my favorite kind of strokes, just saying.
Hey, his last
dumb.
name's Broad.
Cool. Couple of things that I did just a really quick focus group of people and said like, hey, what are some things you want us to chat about real quick? And one of the things that came up, which I think would be good, is like, what's marriage and ministry look like? So like both
Right.
of us are ministry couples. So anybody we get a lot of Kingswood students who go to our church that are like that's in their future anyway? And
Like vocational ministry, being pastors and married.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
what's it look like to be married and then also have a ministry at a church as a part of that? Whether it's one of you or both of you. Like for us, like we've been married for 10 years now, and like literally our entire marriage, we've both been pastors at a church. That we've worked together, like from day one. We got married, lived in an apartment on campus at the school for 6 months, then pulled a U-Haul up to that, and then moved to Buffalo, New York, and worked at a church, and both started working together right away. Our offices were like right next to each other, and now we still share an office today. For a brief period of time, we were across the hallway from each other with offices. Like, it's just always been
24/7.
24/7.
Is that
Like,
good
yeah.
for you guys? Or some people can't make
Yeah.
that work, but
Right.
you guys work together.
For us, it's
See
always
each
been
other.
awesome. Like we've been, and I think again, kind of the being friends thing first. Like that's why we could never date anybody else, because we always went back to that person. So it's never been a struggle for us to always be together. Like we're just.
I mean, it is a huge challenge when you're fighting on the way to work in the morning, and then you have to go sit in the same office
Right.
with other people.
Yeah, you don't-
like we have
you
a
don't
shared
get
office
space.
space.
Yes.
Yeah, we
Like-
never get space for long.
And then, like,
Yeah, you're like 15 feet away from one another.
right,
even
like
at
we
your
could
desk.
see each other if
Glaring
we
at each other.
wanted to.
Make it really,
Shooting
make it really
day.
awkward for Lyndon
Yeah.
and Ron.
yeah. But
You over there.
so it definitely has its challenges.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
And like even just sometimes it's when you experience pretty much your whole day together all the time, you have to be intentional about sharing your lives together in an intimate
Right,
way.
right.
Like
Otherwise,
like-
it just kind of gets all blurred. You're never on. You're never off.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's one of the things
And what's
that-
just for us.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we have struggled with in our marriage some, which is again mostly my fault, is that like it's easy for me to go on autopilot that because we're always together and we share. Like there's never like there isn't a come home and like download how your day goes, because like we're together all day, right? So
Right.
everything's happening in real time. And so for me, I'm like, man, that's awesome and I love you and we're together. But it's then like, how do I take that and become more intentional and being romantic or more husbandy, if that's a word, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't always been great at that because I've taken that
Right.
for granted.
Right.
Well, and on both
Because you're
ends,
always around.
both ends, like when it's always a challenge. Like you talked about not allowing everything else to have your best, but
Right.
when you see your spouse giving everybody else your best,
Right.
like that adds
You're
a
like, how
different.
come you were so forgiving at the staff meeting, but
Yeah.
then we get home and you ripped on Carter?
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
like you're at work and
Right.
you don't necessarily know that he's giving his best to someone else. It's like, no, I've watched you
She
do it all.
saw you. She saw you.
You were fighting with me in the car, and then we walked into work, and you were like, "Oh, hey guys, how's it going? Good to see
Yeah.
you. You guys are awesome."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, we're you guys are actually deeper into the marriage and ministry thing than we are. I mean, she's had a ministry by proxy with me this year, where she's getting more involved and more intentionally involved in the ministry here. But
Yeah.
even that, though, I mean, she's still a nurse at the hospital
Yep.
and kind of has her own thing going there too. So we've had a different dynamic,
Which is
than
cool
you
because
guys.
I would say most of the couples, like it's more rare to have them both, but there are some. We got both couples who are in full-time ministry.
Yeah.
But because we're so hot and cold, like a little bit of space is good for us. Like
Right.
Yeah, it's healthy for
it
us.
helps us for real. Like we just couldn't share an office and a bed.
Right.
Just that's one or the other.
Not gonna happen.
So we, even getting her involved here more intentionally, like we're just trying to find good channels for her
Yeah.
to do that. And we like to work together too, but neither one of us have an Andy personality
Right.
that like can just roll. So we just had to be careful with that. So you guys are probably deeper into managing that than us. I would say, though, with every relationship, whether you're in ministry or whatever, like I think it's trying to understand that in every situation there are obstacles and opportunities, and there are weaknesses and strengths, and you have to figure
sure.
out how to leverage the strengths and just kind of deal with the weaknesses. Like for us, one perceived weakness would be our marriage is in the public eye. Like we don't have the privacy necessarily that other families do, although we try to guard that pretty tight. I don't broadcast where we live.
Yep.
Not everybody knows who our kids are and that kind of thing. And I want a certain degree of privacy. I want my kids to be able to grow up having, their own opportunities to find their faith and
Right.
live it out just like every other kid. And sometimes pastors' kids don't get a fair shake.
For sure.
So our marriage, though, is through a bit of a different lens than some. So on the one hand, that's a pressure, but on the other hand, that's caused us to have to deal with our relationship. Like we're not gonna fake this, and I can't do ministry and project an image that I'm not, and neither can she. And so, I'm very honest in how we talk from the pulpit, and even in this relationship, we love each other, we're growing, but we have issues just like everybody else.
Yep.
But I think some of the public eye, it causes us though to have to deal with stuff, whether it's together or personally. Like like as a pastor, I have people watching that it keeps guardrails on me. It causes me to say, I can't go there. I can't do that. I can't say that. I can't look at that. I can't, because I have this whole thing, and that's healthy for me. Like that keeps me on my knees. It keeps me on the straight and narrow because I have too much riding on it. So on the one hand, the lack of privacy is difficult. On the other hand, it's strengthening. Like we have opportunities that other couples don't have too. We're blessed in ways that other couples aren't. So I think life's not fair, but if you give your life and your marriage to God, God is fair, and He knows how, and He knows what you need to thrive, and what you need to go through life together. And I think God is very fair. Again, I don't know why some people go through difficulty. Life's not fair, and some people have way harder goes than other people. But I think if you do your best to follow God together, He's going to lead you well and lead you in a way that He knew so much about our relational dynamic before we did. Like even when we first got married, she's a hyper introvert. Like even doing this is not super comfortable for her, although
Thanks for coming,
you're
Mel.
doing awesome. But I wasn't at first, right? Like I wanted to be out with people all the time. I wanted to just, let's go hang out with people.
Isn't
Let's
it
go
weird
to
how that
this.
changes too over the years?
Ministry changed that in me.
Yeah.
Though. Like now I'm always on, so I value being alone way more than I ever did, which has worked out real well for her, right? Like it's been great for our relationship. So at first what I thought was going to be a point of contention was actually a point of strength, where it's like, whereas if she was a person that just needed to be with people all the time, I couldn't do it at this stage in my life, because that's all I do all day, every day. I need to go home and just have a quiet, safe place with my wife and kids. And she's happiest like that, right? So God knew in advance,
Exactly.
like what we were going to need to be able to thrive in this unique relationship we have. So I think it's figuring out like to follow God together and to look for, like, again, every obstacle has opportunities, every strength has weaknesses, and vice versa. And so to understand where you're vulnerable and understand where you're advantaged. And I think every couple has those opportunities.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's good, man.
You want to do one more question? I know we're getting on it here. I mean, this is we're up a little over an hour already, so.
Yep, we're coming up on it. What if we talked about gender roles for a minute?
Yeah.
You want to see that one?
Absolutely.
This is one that came up, which is kind of cool because, I mean, obviously we think marriage, and typically we think, all right, like the guy's going to mow the lawn, and, he's going to build elaborate playgrounds for the children outside.
He's going to harvest deer, make his own jerky.
He's just going to go outside when the sun comes up, and he's never going to come back in until it's dark, and he's going to sit down at the table with the fork and knife and say, what'd you make me for supper, right? Like, I mean, these are stereotypes.
And all within that being the only spiritual leader in the house.
Yes.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
But he's the guy, right? Yeah, and then he comes home and you have to have sex every night and all that stuff, right? That
used to be. Now it's almost the polar opposite, though. Like now, like there's such a move for female rights, which I'm not opposed to by any means, but like that's shifting as well. Like I think the stereotypes are blown up, and now I think this is a great question to have as Christians. Like if we grew up, in the 50s, that was, the dude ruled the roost, and there was very little negotiating on that. Which, and now. It's kind of a free-for-all. Like the culture is completely redefining what family looks like, what marriage looks like. And so we're now as Christians in a completely new zone.
That's a good point. But I would say also, to add on to that a little bit, I feel like Christian culture is a thing too, right? When it comes to marriages, like there's still like that piece of
that's what I mean.
Church,
we as
I would say
Christians
Christian
have to
culture,
figure that
church
out.
culture, let's say. Like in a way that like we still carry some of those things on or hold on to some of those things that maybe aren't necessarily healthy or helpful.
Some of it depends on your age or your upbringing or your religious background.
Right.
So I think The reality is, though, as Christians, we now have, like, someone who's getting married now, like, I think the church has to redefine, biblically speaking, how is this supposed to function out? What does the Bible actually say about gender and identity and how that relates in a marriage?
Yep.
And what's just kind of cultural presupposition?
Right.
Right? And so, yeah, I mean, what in your understanding, how's that supposed to work? You know, biblically speaking.
Well, certainly it's never worked out for us that like I'm the lumberjack that's outside. Like that's just
You're wearing the shirt.
I do sometimes like to make myself think that I could be a lumberjack, but no, that's not the case. Like even when it comes down to like in our house, like I'm not handy at all.
Yeah.
I can't fix things. Like things with my hands are not good. Like to the point where, and this is not a typical gender role kind of situation where something's broken and I'll take it and like I'm the man. I'm gonna fix this. And
You're getting all geared up, handy Andy on the move.
Yeah. I get out my tiny little toolbox that has like 3 nails and a screwdriver in it. And, like that's my arsenal, and
That's your
I'm gonna fix this thing. It's a little bigger than that. I'm gonna fix this
It's
thing.
got a glue gun in it.
Yeah, exactly, something like that.
Duct tape.
And then I'll like mess with it for a while, and I'll be like, Kari, this is broke. You got to look at this. And like she'll come down and she'll mess with it, and like she'll figure out a way. Like she's just more kinetic than I am, right? And that's not like not the way I grew up. That's not the way it worked, right?
Yeah.
But it's just something I've had to be okay with saying. Hey, you know what? Like I'm secure enough to let her be strong where I'm weak. If you can fix the leaky faucet and I can't, hey, that's awesome. If not, then I'll have to call somebody.
Yeah.
And I don't do any laundry.
Yeah, that's another big one for us.
Not even
yeah.
like boys.
No, he
No,
doesn't.
I
like
pretty-
unless
I
like
Wow.
he's
get it all
busy.
locked down.
Wow.
Hey,
Does he do yours?
good for you.
Yeah.
He does your laundry.
No, that's
Yeah.
cool.
I'll ask how she needs it done. Yeah.
Well, hey,
It's
but you guys
one
have
of those-
doesn't say in the
know
Bible,
anything?
thou shalt do the laundry and thou shalt,
Right.
To
you
the
know,
point
cut
where
the
sometimes
wood.
I'm like, how do you? Am I supposed to hang this or dry it?
Wow.
Like
So
this,
you do
yes,
you do the plumbing.
I hang dry this.
You do the plumbing.
We have a
and
drying
you're-
rack though.
So you're plunger and you're downy, and that's
Yes,
kind of how it's
yes,
going. Okay,
that's-
that's
But
amazing.
I don't like. But I don't do like really do the garbage, or I don't ever snope like do the.
There are
stuff.
some things that are more
No.
typical. Yeah,
You
those
know,
are probably the two most extreme
You're
examples.
a little more fluid in how that works
Yeah.
this way out.
For us,
that might
for
be
us, where we
politically
settled,
incorrect.
Yeah, it hasn't been more of a gender thing, like who's the man, who's the woman in the house. It's been more like at the beginning, we
Yeah.
started every new thing. It's like, okay, here's a new thing that has to be accomplished in the household.
What are you good at?
Yeah, what are you good at? What are you good at? I'll take this, and then we've been married for 10 years now. And we've been doing like the same kinds of things for 10 years. Like for instance, like she always packs the kids' lunches, always. And so, and I always give the kids breakfast. Every morning we get up, I feed the kids breakfast. She packs lunches. So for some reason the schedule deviates, we're all thrown off. She has to feed the kids breakfast. It's like, well, that's not how this works. And like her schedule is thrown up. Or if I had to pack the kids lunches, I'm like, I could feed them breakfast all day long, but what the heck do I
Right.
pack for a school lunch? What do they even want to eat? I have no idea.
Right.
Is it chips? Is it I'm
But
all
I think
confused.
a big reason why our lives have ended up that way is literally from the point we got married, we've both been working full time, and then
Right.
even entering have kids. Like we were in the States when we had kids, and
Right.
I
So it
had to go
wasn't-
back to
yeah.
work at 6 weeks. Like, and I was full time. Like I've called into being in full time ministry, and so knowing if that's the call that God's placed on my, or that's a circumstance that we're in, that like we have to make life work, and
Yeah.
it's not going to work if I'm doing everything at work and coming home and doing all of the household
Yes.
stuff
Right.
completely by myself.
Yeah.
And so that's I think why we ended up in the
Right.
different
I
roles
had to
that we
quickly
have.
realize like we didn't have a stay-at-home parent in the relationship.
Yeah.
So I couldn't expect gender typical roles.
It took some time to figure
for
that
her
out,
to work
though.
with me full time and then go and do everything else at home all by herself too.
Right.
Yeah, and we had to figure it out.
And it took
Sure.
some like me getting over my pride that I couldn't like do everything.
Yeah.
And just realizing that if I'm gonna keep my sanity on top of it, that we need to do this together.
Yeah, I mean, we can crack open maybe the theological stuff at another time, like complementarianism and
Yeah.
egalitarianism for all you fun theology nerds. But you know, I think at the end of the day, we've already covered it. Like, really, what God designed is that we come together in our strengths and our weaknesses,
Yep.
and we serve one another, and we
Yep.
build. We serve the home together. I think I probably am not as secure as you in maybe some of the like I still like my brother-in-law AJ makes me feel like less of a man sometimes, and
AJ
and all
makes
that.
everybody feel
yeah
Thanks for
freaking
that,
guy.
AJ.
So you know, some of that stuff, like, I'm not handy either, so we're kindred spirits
We
in
got
that. Like, I have to hire that stuff.
Right.
I did build some mean shelves in our garage though, didn't I, hon?
I heard about those shelves. I heard about
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
You said yes.
The
But
smile
like,
nod.
you know what? We established though, like early on, you know, who's going to be doing what, and
Yeah.
she works too. So,
Yeah.
but it's fair. Like she works part time, so she's home a few days too, and so like we're in it together, and
It's a team effort.
yeah, and
Sure.
and you
And find a rhythm that works, right? Like
Right.
that's what I would say to people. Like don't get caught up in like, oh, I should be doing this or I should be doing that. It's like
Yeah.
find a rhythm that works for your family,
Yeah.
and then freaking work it.
You know,
Yeah.
I think God created us different to complement one another. I do think there's something to be said about if it comes down to you know, how is God moving our family? Like we haven't had a ton of those decisions, but a lot of them have circled ultimately around what I was sensing from the Lord and how she was reacting with that. Like I would never do something that God told me, like I felt like God told me to do this and she wasn't in alignment with me. I think that's where that whole like male headship thing gets screwed up.
Yeah.
Is people say, okay, wives submit to your husband for he's the head of the household. But then it says husbands love your wives like Christ loved the church. Like it's not male headship to do something where you're not in alignment with, right? Like I don't
not
think God's
pulling
going to
rank.
lead. No, exactly. Like I would never have moved us here to take that job if she wasn't like, yeah, I feel called to this too. I am going to leave my job in Fredericton. I am going to get rid of my apartment. We're going to go start our life there. I would never have done that. I would never have taken the lead pastor job here if she didn't feel like, yes, that terrifies me, but I feel like that we're supposed to do this, right? So God's used me maybe as the channel to direct some of those large decisions, but they've never been things that I've done isolated ever. Like
No,
we have to agree together.
on every decision.
Totally.
Yeah.
A house divided can't stand.
Exactly.
Like I would never do that. And so I don't think it's healthy. Like I think there's some real abuses of what like that the Bible really means by male headship. I think there does need to be understanding that God speaks to and through the husband a lot of the time, but also can through the wife as well. It's that kind of unity, it's that mutual submission, mutual listening. That's what makes it work. Anytime one person's lording over the other, it undermines marriage.
Yep.
Period. So
And sometimes it's just allowing to have the time to track with that.
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like a lot of times if you're already knowing like this is where we need to be and this is where we're going, like you've already processed through that yourself and you're there. But then like sometimes it's allowing the other person to have a chance to get there. Like
Bring
sometimes
them
you expect
along
it to be like,
process.
oh yeah, of course, but
Yeah.
it's like wait, like to allow the time to arrive there as well.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good.
Cool.
Any final thoughts, panel, gang?
Final
we're
thoughts.
gonna do something like this last week of the For Better For Worse series. We're gonna do like a real-time panel
Be
in
fun.
the service. It'll be fun. We'll answer some questions and tackle some topics that we haven't hit yet.
Yep.
Some of the stuff we're gonna cover in the coming weeks in the For Better For Worse series. You getting your clap applause? Are you ready? Let me get ready too.
Because last time I wasn't ready. I
We
was
still
slow
got
on the draw.
We still got to talk about dating and singleness.
Yep.
We got people registering for our singles night. That's going to
it's
be
gonna be dope.
awesome. And then
March
couples
31st.
night's going to be a ton of fun too.
That is, yeah, I'm looking forward to
that's
that.
going to
It'll
be
be a lot of
awesome
fun.
as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to do dating, singleness, actually aloneness. We're going to talk about just in general because it's not just people who are navigating this series who are single. We got people who were married. We got people who also I'm aware of like what's God have to say about the spouse who's a believer to a
Right.
non-believer. So we're going to cover that. Going to cover. We'll talk about sex on the panel, and we'll talk about money, all this stuff. So we got
There's
lots
still
more.
so many things we haven't
Lots of
answered,
stuff to
which will be
cover.
awesome.
So
Gotta be
Yep.
good.
all right,
Stay
ladies,
tuned.
thank you for jumping in. A
Yeah,
hearty
seriously,
applause to
appreciate it. Do you
you.
want to shake mine?
Thanks for having me.
Do you want to shake it? There we go.
That's a
I
wrap.
offered.
Kelly Ripa, we're coming
Thanks.
for your job.
Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys. Catch you later.